Hey guys, so we recently traveled to Ladakh, as you're aware, to ride the new BMW R 1300 GS. That is the motorcycle that I'm on. This is the motorcycle that you see on the side as well. But the motorcycle in front, kicking up all that dust, that is the BMW R 1250 GS, ridden by Adib Javanmardi. You might remember that name from the guy, one of the guys who represented India at the GS Trophy. Excellent rider, both off the road and on it as well. And here, both of us are riding together. He's a dear friend of mine, and I'm glad he was there in Ladakh as well. So both of us rode the two motorcycles together. Now the review of the 1300 GS is going to drop on youtube.com/odmag. BMW has delayed the footage a little bit, that is why it's taking time, but if the review is out, the link will be in the description, so do check back for that. In this video, since the 1250 and the 1300 are riding together, I'm going to point out a few key differences when you're riding the bike. I've already done a video on the key differences between the two motorcycles in a static walk around video, so definitely do take a look at that as well to understand the technical differences between the two bikes. I'm not going to repeat those over here. Here I'm going to talk about the in-saddle experience of the 1250 versus the 1300. So first things first, the engine. Bigger engine, right? More power. On paper, not a very big difference in terms of the power, and in the saddle also, you're not going to feel a very big difference. Here through the course of the video, you will see there are some sections where Adib pulls off very nicely, opens up the gap on me. Some sections where I close in the gap on him, be it entry points, be it exits, be it some of the straights, whatever. So it is going to boil down to the rider how they are able to really exploit these two tools, the 1250 and the 1300. But the power difference is not going to feel big. Even if you were to ride both the motorcycles back to back, the difference in power is not going to feel huge. Even if you're coming from a 1200 to the 1300, again the feel is going to be very similar. Yes, there the power difference might be a little more evident because you have the shift cam tech on the 1250 and the 1300. The 1200 loses out on that. So on the low end, while both of them or all three of them are going to feel equally tractable, it's when the load increases or when you start giving it the beans, the 1300 and the 1250 start feeling crisper, more powerful, throaty, etc. Of course, there are people who might think otherwise, who might even say that the 1200 looks or feels a lot throatier. I'll agree with that. Yes, it does. There is a raw character to that as well. But I like the dual character that the shift cam provides, where it feels very tractable and smooth at lower engine speeds, and then at higher speeds or higher load, the engine just becomes a different animal altogether. I like that duality with the 1250 and the 1300 engine. In the 1300, you're also going to feel that the throttle response is a little bit crisper, and that you will really have to spend a lot of time in the saddle of the 1250 and the 1300 back to back to really notice that slightly crisper throttle response, and that's especially beyond that 6000 RPM, where you will actually start feeling the difference in the grunt of the two motorcycles. Otherwise, low end, mid range, the throttle response is slightly crisper on the 1300. The low end response or the low end engine feel is a little bit smoother. Again, these are brand new motorcycles, but compared to what I remember of my own 1250 and then the 1250 that I rode here for this ride, the low end feels a little smoother on the 1300 compared to the 1250. So very small advantages in that sense. The next thing is the gearbox. Similar feel again in the gearbox. What is different is the quick shifter. It's a spring loaded quick shifter on the 1250, so it feels a little bit notchy for the upshift and the downshifts, the clutchless upshifts and the downshifts. But on the 1300, listen to me carefully, the foot has to be away from the shifter if you want to do multiple shifts. It's weird, it's ironic, I know. Again, listen to me carefully. For example, if for this kind of a straight, if I want to quickly, go 2 gears up, I have enough room to go 2 gears up. The moment I make the first shift, I have to make sure that the foot is away from the shifter, I reach the desired RPM, and then bring my foot back under the shifter and then shift. Because if my foot is even anywhere closer to the shifter, even if it's like barely, feather touch on the shifter gets confused. This magnetic quick shifter gets confused, and it thinks that, oh, whether you want to upshift or what are you trying to do? Are you putting pressure, not putting pressure? It just goes into that kind of a limbo, and it starts cutting power, chopping power abruptly. Imagine you're just trying to accelerate hard to overtake someone, and it suddenly cuts power as if a limiter has hit. And that has happened to us on a lot of occasions, not just me, other riders as well. Now the common element was all the other riders and me, we were either wearing the Alpine Stars Dukan boot, or some of them were on off-road boots. So chunky boots, I don't know if that is what was causing it. So if you do take a test ride of the 1300, let me know if you had a similar problem with the quick shifter or not. So that is the second bit. Now we'll talk about the brakes, because an important factor here, you have the ABS Pro. Now on the 1250, If you engage only the front brake, you don't even have your foot on the rear brake lever. If you engage only the front brake, a little bit of the rear also gets engaged. On the 1300, it works, and it works the other way around as well. That means if you only tap the rear brake, a little bit of the front brake will also get engaged. So on the off-road also, it's working pretty well, where even if you're using the rear brake, a bit of the front is getting tapped, but it's not creating any unnerving slide or any unnerving response from the front end. It's very nicely measured. It also takes into account that you're probably in enduro mode when you're doing that, so it will adjust the brake bias accordingly. And here around the twisties, that just helps stabilize the bike a lot quicker. So if you're using just the rear or just the front, it's making sure that the bike is very stable irrespective of the brakes that you're using. You're able to negotiate even these tight turns very nicely. You may have already noticed that the road is really narrow, just barely wider than a toll booth. So even if two cars were to come head on against each other, each vehicle has to get one set of wheels off the road. That is how narrow this road is, and still we are able to do some really quick speeds around these sections. So that again highlights that the 1300 and the 1250 are very closely matched in terms of their dynamic ability. The brakes definitely help the 1300 better in terms of the stability. The other thing that I really love on the 1300 is the new suspension setup. With that Evo paralever, Evo telelever, it essentially has extra set of springs within the gas canisters as well. So that essentially mimics the effect of a progressive spring or a dual spring setup, etc. So what's happening is, road mode, it feels quite comfortable, but in dynamic mode, the 1300 has a slightly stiffer feel. You can stiffen it up even further compared to the 1250. So if you really want those taut dynamics, you don't want absolutely any nosedive, etc., etc., you want that stiff feeling from the suspension, you can do that even with the 1300. So that is something that I really like. And on the road mode, when you take a test ride, you might just feel that, oh, it's feeling a little stiffer compared to my 1250 or even my 1200. So what you really need to do is you need to go into the damping settings and try it on damping -1 or -2. A lot of mistake that people are doing right now, even I saw that from quite a few journalists, they are simply not bothered about the damping because probably they don't know about it. But yeah, you need to go into the damping menu and adjust the damping settings as well. On -1 or -2, it's going to feel nice and squishy like what you felt on the road mode of the 1250, right? And if you want something stiffer than the 1250, then you dial it up to 1 or 2 on the damping menu, and that just makes it a lot stiffer, and you get those much tauter handling dynamics from the 1300. So that is another feature that I really like. Now with the repositioned cylinders, the gearbox is sitting under the engine, right? So the cylinders are sitting slightly higher up, so you're able to get a much nicer lean angle, a lot more cornering clearance compared to the 1250. So if you are the kind who loves to lean the bike into the corners, my friend Rishad Modi from Autocar also put up a very nice photograph where he's really leaned the bike over quite a bit on these very roads, right? So unfortunately I don't have a similar pic, but yeah, we love the way the motorcycle leans compared to the 1250. So if you're one of those guys who loves to exploit the BMW R 1250 GS as a sport rider as well, you're going to absolutely have a fun time on the 1300. But a bit of a missed opportunity is that on the 1250, the switch that you had right next to the roller, right? So that switch, press it down and you could adjust the damping. At the same time, you could also lower the motorcycle if you wanted. That is something that is not available with the 1300 unless you choose the triple black version 2, which gives you that adaptive ride height. That's the only one on which you can make the bike go lower. You cannot do that on the Trophy at all. There is no low seat setting either. Like on the 1250 GS, you could change the height of the seat, right? There were multiple mounting points for the rider's seat where you could lower it. That you cannot do on the 1300 at all. So you either have to stick to that 870mm saddle height that is coming out of the box, or choose the low seat variant when you are ordering the motorcycle. There is no adjustable seating, and that is weird. That's, I think, a big missed opportunity, and something that a lot of people who are upgrading from maybe the 1250 to the 1300, people are not going to like that. Even the adaptive ride height should have been offered at least as an option on every variant and not made it only available on one variant, which is the triple black version 2. Imagine you can buy the top of the line Tramontana and even that doesn't get the adaptive ride height. So that's a bit of a missed opportunity. I think the product team should have done better planning there, and I hope in the future at least, they offer the adaptive ride height as something that is at least an optional extra. This tall seat height may not be to everyone's liking. For example, that the rider that you see coming in right now, he took quite a bit of time to take a U-turn on this narrow road because he was a slightly shorter rider. He is riding the trophy here. That's 870 millimeter seat height. So, it becomes a little unnerving to take that U-turn with such a tall ride height, and that is where the 12 kg weight advantage that the 1300 has still sort of negates itself. Now let's talk a little bit about that power to weight ratio. The upgraded power to weight ratio definitely helps on the 1300, but honestly you're not really going to feel it all that much unless you're riding on really narrow roads like these, or when riding off-road. When you're going off the road, there you can feel the weight distribution help a lot. More than the weight loss, it's the weight distribution that helps a lot, because the mass centralization is a lot better on the 1300 with that gearbox sitting under the engine, the narrower frame, the narrower engine overall, the narrower seating, the narrower tank as well. So standing up and riding, doing your enduro stuff, doing your off-road stuff feels noticeably better and easier on the 1300 compared to the 1250. So on tarmac, the in-saddle experience between the 1250 and 1300 is not very different, despite the mass centralization definitely helping it do sharper corners and sharper leans, etc. But off the road is where the 1300 definitely feels better compared to the 1250. It just feels a little friendlier, a little easier. That 12 kg weight advantage, well, give or take, depending on the accessories you're going to put, it may or may not feel like an advantage to you. So I will not really touch upon that weight loss all that much. It's the way the weight distribution is done on the 1300 that will definitely feel like an advantage to you. But is the experience between the 1250 and the 1300 very different? Not really. If you're already enjoying your time on the 1250, the amount of miles that you've spent on the 1250 now, after that coming to a 1300, it's not going to feel like a world of a difference. Similarly, again, the 1200 riders may not feel like it's a world of a difference. That, like I said, the power output, the crisper throttle response might definitely help, but apart from that, it's not going to feel like a world of a difference. One little thing, you can enjoy the views right here. That is another good thing about the cockpit of the 1300. It feels a lot roomier compared to the 1250. More transparent surfaces, much lesser opaque surfaces. So it just makes it feel roomy. That also helps you with the cornering visibility that you have, especially if you're a slightly shorter rider. When you're going into corners, you're going to have a slightly better feel, that roomy feel, and it's just going to boost your confidence a little bit more. And this is not the enduro windscreen, this is still the stock windscreen. It's pretty tall even at its lowest setting, and still going off the road doesn't really hamper your vision all that much even with this one. So that transparency, that light airy feel around the cockpit definitely helps. The other bit is the little markings that you have on the handlebar. So when you're standing and riding, or if you're going to do a lot of off-road riding, you can even turn the handlebar a little bit, loosen the bolts, turn the handlebar a little bit, and your reference points, so you can just bring it back down very easily when you're riding on the road yet again. Now, in terms of the sound, I don't know, I'm going to stop talking in a little bit so you can enjoy the sound now. But in terms of the sound, the 1300 does sound a little bit throaty when you hear it from the outside. From the saddle, it actually feels a little more silent compared to the 1250. But if you're an onlooker, and if both the bikes were to go past you, the 1300 definitely sounds a lot gruntier. So that is something that I really like. But that's it for this video. I think I've touched upon majority of the topics for the 1250 between the 1300, both in terms of the static video and this on-road footage as well. And what I'll do is, once this video is up, let me know if you want me to upload this entire riding footage without any commentary on it, just the raw audio as is from whatever the mics have caught for the cameras. So let me know in the comments below if you want me to upload the same video without any commentary, and I will do that as well, so you can hear the raw nature of the 1300. Unfortunately, I don't have any onboard footage of the 1250 to give you a comparison, but at least this video I can give you the full audio raw as it is. So let me know in the comments below. If you have any questions about the two motorcycles, put them in the comments as well. Thank you so much for watching this one. Until the next one, take care and ride safe.